Hello, this is a prepaid call from an inmate at the Virginia Department of Corrections, Red Onion State Prison. To accept this call, press 0.
This is Randall Via, a.k.a. Red Onion Randy. I'm currently serving 1,214 years for capital murder and armed robbery. Now, and finally, at a level 3 Buckingham Correctional Center, stone's throw from where I grew up. If you have any questions or comments or want to leave a message or whatever, I've got a voicemail line. That number is 1-888-524-1932. You can also visit my website, which is new and improved and got different features and whatnot, at www.redonionrandy.com. I hope you do. Let's get started with the podcast. Today, I have an interesting guest. This is a guy who actually was doing time in the Virginia Department of Corrections as I was doing time. And even though we've never met or ran across one another, we know similar people. One of his best friends in prison used to be my old cellie back in the day. Through mutual reaching out and so on and so forth, we was able to finally meet up and talk. His name is Jesse Crosson. He's on social media. He goes by the handle Second Chancer, and he's doing a lot of good out there. Now, the conversation kind of starts. It kind of jumps straight into it for a couple of reasons. One, I did my research. While we was setting this up, I talked to some guys who knew this guy and so on and so forth, because I wanted to make sure he was legit. And from my understanding, he did the exact same on his end. He didn't want to just come on any random old guy's podcast and look stupid, and can't blame him there. So after we did what we did, we jumped on the phone and we made it happen, and kind of at an interesting time. And I know we jumped straight into the conversation, but that's because we just came off of a lock. I've heard two different things. I don't know which one is true. The only thing I do know is that two guys got airlifted off of Buckingham because their heads got bashed in. Don't know what the weapon of choice was. I don't know the reason why. Some people are saying it's because they owe drug money. Other people are saying it's because they used the N-word in front of the wrong black man. Either way, I ain't got much sympathy for you. Pay your debts, show respect, probably keep your skulls intact. So with that, we had just come out for like a modified type of lock, and then you had people coming in for the little Friday morning meeting in the pod I'm in, and we didn't know what was going on, so we just had to go for it, and we did, and quite frankly, I think it turned out pretty damn good. I hope you enjoyed listening to it, because I had fun, and maybe sometime in the future, might be able to get him back on and do it again. Hope you enjoy.
How you doing, Randy?
I'm doing all right, Hoss. How are you?
About the same. It's a Friday morning, but a good one.
Well, at least you ain't spent the last 2 days on lock.
Oh, 100%. I mean, to be fair, I was in the hospital, so I was locked down in a different way, but not the last 2 days, just over the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I can't imagine you're having a very good time up there.
Dude, at the end of the day, bro, I'm loving it up here. It's so much better than the Western region and where I come from, man. So I've got the right perspective for it.
Where are you at now?
Buckingham, your old stomping grounds.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, it's not even nearly as good as it was, but yeah, that's a million times better than the Onion. Jesus.
Yeah, it's not as good as I heard it used to be, but they're getting ready to turn it into an incentive prison. So,
yeah,
I've got that going for me.
I was just in
19 years charge free and everything. Sorry.
Good shit. Yeah, I was just in Dillon a couple of weeks ago, and they were telling me about the things they were doing in those two locations.
Right.
Mm.
So, if you don't mind, man, I mean, I've heard a little bit about you through my editor, Michael, and also I asked a guy in here if he had known who you were and everything, and he said he didn't know, but he had two of his really, really good friends are really cool with you. I can't remember what the one guy's name, but the other guy, ST, Kevin Fox.
Yeah, ST's good people.
Yeah, me and him used to be selling
really good
back
people.
at Red Onion in the day. It's been
very cool. It's a small world, right?
Time since I've seen him. It always is, bro. That's what a lot of people don't realize about prison. You know what I'm saying? It's an extremely tiny world.
When I went into Dillon the other week, it was all the people that I knew, all the people I had been locked up with, all the staff, people I'd worked for, jobs I'd had. It was just, a different world right there, and then an hour or two in the gym.
Yeah, let's actually talk about that. I heard that you was got locked up at 18 yourself, pretty much the same as me. You did your time, got a pardon and everything, which is something I'm extremely interested in because my wife just paid $3,500 to James Dillingham out of Hampton, Virginia, to help me file for one.
Okay.
So
at 18, I committed a robbery and a shooting, basically just strung out on drugs and out of my mind, and now I know what I was doing. I'm really lucky that I didn't kill anybody in the shooting. Really lucky that I didn't seriously hurt anybody in the robbery. My co-defendants all got 2.5, 4, and 8 years, and I got 32 years. Just kind of tried to figure out what I was going to do, and it kind of hit the ground running. Had people who believed in me, encouraged me while I was feeling sorry for myself, and forced me or drove me to get an education and help other people and kind of grow in every way that I could. To the point that after 19 years, Governor Ralph Northam granted me a conditional pardon and let me go. And that was August 16th of 2021, so coming up on 4 years ago.
Yeah. Well, first of all, dude, I'm sure you already know this, but, just for the listeners, like, hearing stuff like that, man, it gives us inspiration in here. I really wish I would have took a freaking shot and filed my pardon under Ralph Northam, but for whatever reason, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
In
Youngkin, I actually met somebody at Dillon who had gotten a pardon under Youngkin. So it's possible, but it's far-fetched, and he seems to be more on the political side than it is on the kind of humanitarian side. But as far as what it was like, getting up in the morning and thinking I have 10 years left of my sentence, and that afternoon finding out I'm going home in an hour and a half, there really aren't words for that. It's about as shocking and overwhelming and amazing as I possibly could have imagined. I think a lot of people imagine they tell you and they give you warning and you plan out. It was no, get out and kick me out in the middle of COVID. They basically said, we hope your mom can get here in time, because if she doesn't, we're not going to be able to release you. And I was like, well, I hope she can get here. And then getting out to the world, it's overwhelming in a way that very few people can imagine unless you've gone from that. And I've talked to a lot of veterans who've separated from service. I've talked to a lot of people who've left abusive relationships. I've talked to a lot of people who've left really unhealthy or abusive homes. It's the same kind of thing. You're we become dependent upon this system because the system requires us to be dependent on it. And then we get out in the world and we're just not prepared. And it's a huge adjustment.
Yeah, that's actually something I'm intimately interested in, because I don't know if you researched me when Michael reached out to you for this opportunity and everything for us. Who I am, my past. I used to be an extremely violent individual. I've cut 2 people's throats since I've been in prison. I've fought the police left and right. I ran up in dude cells, and I did all that stuff. And as you know, in prison there's a code of conduct. There's things that you can kind of let slide, and there's some things that you cannot let slide whatsoever. Like if somebody calls you a bitch in front of pod, there's things in here that you have to do sometimes. And I've been in prison since 11. I did 7 years in the juvenile system, got out very briefly, got locked back up, under capital murder and armed robbery and whatnot. So, how do you transition from that way we're forced to live here in prison to being on the streets? Because it's 2 entirely different ways of communicating and speaking to another human being, depending on what side of the fence you're on. How do you deal with that?
I'll say I made a lot of changes in prison as far as the people that I was around and things I was doing, so that wasn't as much of an issue. Theoretically it could be an issue, but when I wasn't gambling, when I wasn't getting high, when I wasn't in the game, when I wasn't doing anything, I didn't have to worry about anybody calling me a bitch or getting into conflict. One guy tried to stab me with a pencil maybe a year or so before I got out, just because he was having a mental health issue and he was frustrated. But other than that, I mean, that was a situation where I just defended myself. It wasn't the same thing. But when I focused on, I was one of the mentors in the SAM program. I focused on, hey, how do we help people? Like, how do I spend all day reading and educating myself and helping other people and staying out of the politics? Now, when I got sent down to the dormitory for the last 10 months and all of a sudden we're fighting over the phones and we're doing other stuff, that was different, and that was kind of a return to the kind of prison mindset, and I didn't like that at all. But I feel like I'd made enough changes that by the time I hit the street, it was still uncomfortable. Like, every time somebody bumped into me or every time I had one of those situations, like the flare-up was there, like the emotion or the response was there, but I would just force myself to breathe, just force myself not to react. And it took less time than I expected to kind of adjust to it being okay or being more comfortable. But still, like, every now and then, if I'm too tired or I'm too stressed out or something's going on, that's still my first reaction because I had 20 years of learning it. But I think that kind of intentionally going into it and then getting into spaces where I'm safe. I don't go out to crazy bars. I don't go out to places where people are fighting. I stay away from all that. I'll be at home, usually in bed by 9 or 9:30 because I don't want any of that energy around me because I know what it's done to me in the past.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear because, that's something that I've been doing myself. And, for a long time, I've been asking myself when somebody does something to me to trigger me, make me mad, whatever, and I ask myself, and it's a crazy question to ask yourself, but I do. I ask myself this: are you going to murder this person over this? And, thankfully for the last however long, my answer's always been no. Because it's not worth it. It's not throwing away everything I've worked so hard for and everything that I want out of life. And that you're living proof that it does work. So that's a good thing.
People talk about the struggles around housing or the struggles around employment or, like you said, the struggles around like the way we interact with people or communicate with people. What we don't think about is the number of choices we have to make on a daily basis out here versus in there. Like, you get up in the morning, you're going to chow when they call chow. You're going to, go to rec when they call rec, or you're going to go to work when they call work, and it's simple. But out here, you got to choose what you do at every moment. You got to make thousands or tens of thousands of choices every day, and I'd lost the comfort at doing that. I remember sitting in the aisle looking at a bunch of body wash in CVS, 2 days, 3 days after I got out, and not knowing how to make a decision. Because for all those years, I just ordered the same soap on commissary. There was no, I'm choosing between 10 things. This is the one that doesn't break me out. And having to make those decisions and having to, figure out where I actually wanted to go and what I wanted to do was one of the hardest parts for me. And that's why a lot of times I'll tell people the best thing they can do is, focus on making decisions. Force yourself to make decisions about which shirt you're going to wear, what you're going to do, or, which way you're going to go, or what time you're going to get up, but not just by setting an alarm, by, changing it every day. And when I don't know if that actually works, but I know that I was so overwhelmed by decisions when I got out, that almost pushed me over the edge, too.
Yeah. Well, see, and that's something that, honestly, dude, I've been preparing myself to eventually get out of prison. Somehow, I don't know when, but it's going to happen. I have that mindset, I have that belief, and that's something that I've never heard about. That's something in all of my preparation and all of my thinking and daydreaming and everything is the fact that, I'm going to have to come home and make thousands of decisions every single day, and nobody talks about that, even in the pre-release programs that they have here in prison. I've never heard one person ever outside of yourself just now talk about what it's like to make decisions and that's why I'm writing my own program. Me and my editor are working on it called You Ain't Beyond Saving, and I think we're definitely going to have to add a section on what you just said because that's extremely important. And this is why
I completely agree.
Yeah. Well, that's this is why Virginia needs to stop hiring, people that graduated from college and got some criminal justice degree to come up and create these programs. They don't know. They've never even been in a prison, but yet they're writing a program for a prisoner? What kind of sense does that make? They should be hiring you as a contractor, giving you the same money they're giving them, and have you actually doing the program because you know what it's like in here. You know what it's like to get out. You know what it's like to do all these things. That they don't know, that they can't even possibly think is important. How is making a decision for body wash that important to them? But like you said, for us, it can literally freeze you up.
Yeah, I think I'm involved in a project down in North Carolina, and we've got a data scientist who's going through like hundreds of basically studies or questions around people who've actually been locked up and what it is they've struggled with and what it is they need. And this guy's an academic. He's never been locked up, but he recognizes, there's no way I'm going to know any of this. There's no way I'm going to understand. So I need to make sure I'm diving into everybody's experience so that I can come up with what is actually going to be most effective for people getting out based on the experiences of people getting out.
Yeah. And that's why, I'm pretty sure you've heard of the rash of CO stabbings and assaults in the last month or so. And then, of course, you got Aubrey McKay, the young man that was just murdered by the guards at Wallens Ridge last week. All of these things. And I tried talking to some of the people up here. Like, look, I can't fix this. Nobody can fix violence in prison. It's not going to happen. We literally live in an emotional pressure cooker in here. Everything is just exaggerated to the 10th degree for us because of the environment we find ourselves in, because of the lack of stimulus, the lack of care, and so on and so forth. But you can still come talk to me. Come sit down with me or guys like me who not only we've done the violence thing, and then we kind of grew up, and then we rehabilitated ourselves, and then we've proven it for a long period of time. I've been charge-free for 19 years, and I didn't do it at some soft-ass camp like here in Buckingham or Lawrenceville or whatever the case may be. I did it in Red Onion. I did it in Wallens Ridge. I did it, at Keene Mountain, and now eventually here at Buckingham. Like, it's an entirely different world from being in those mountains to being down here in the eastern region. But we have insights that you as a correctional staff or you in Richmond who've never even been to a prison, but yet you're still working in the Department of Corrections, like, come speak to us about these things because we know what it takes. But they're so afraid of, me or you or somebody else saying, well, just give us this, give us that, give us. And the sad part is we wouldn't ask them to give us anything except better educational materials and better opportunities to trade, more opportunities to actually do something. We want, and what they don't realize, we actually want to earn our release from prison. We don't just want it handed to us, because if we hand it to us and we don't have to struggle for it, we don't have to fight for it, we don't have to, to give our all to get it, we know we're going to piss it away. And that's what I like what this data scientist you're talking about. Like, at least he's smart enough to recognize this fact. Yeah.
We definitely need professionals who are willing to use lived experience. And there's more of a talk around that. The UC actually asked me about being a reentry coordinator where I would go from prison to prison talking about my experience. But the problem is it's like 19 hours a week or 28 hours a week or something, and then like $19 an hour. It's not enough to live on. If I was independently wealthy, I would do it because then I could just go from place to place and know I could make an impact. But nobody's going to be able to pay a rent or a car payment or anything on that bill.
Right. Yeah. And that's another thing. You most of the guys that get out of prison, they don't have opportunities. How many times have you heard a guy sign up for the plumbing program or the masonry or, the electrical trade classes, and they're literally waiting 8, 9, 10 years to get in there because most times the damn teacher doesn't even show up to work, yet they still get paid. And we get screwed, and then they get released from prison and go home, and they got to go flip burgers for whatever minimum wage is now.
Yeah. I mean, and we do a lot of work here in Central Virginia around workforce and training and job placement and entrepreneurship. Because, that is often the case, especially in the jail or in local areas where they just don't even have those programs. I mean, I was in the juvenile center yesterday, and we were working to try to get some vocational stuff in there, as well as get them set up with job training and job placement before they get out. Because, saying, okay, I want you to get out and do this, that's great, but if you got to flip burgers and then go to school at night, one, it doesn't give you a lot of time, and two, a lot of times guys just want to give up and go back to what they know because they can make a lot more money doing it.
Right. And, I mean, and as we both know, man, there's a lot of money in on the darker side of the ring.
Yeah.
At the same time, crime is an addiction. You know, it's not just drugs and alcohol or sex or what have you. Like, crime is one of the most dangerous addictions out there because I haven't found a rush quite like it.
Yeah.
You know?
I will say, I've got a friend who, she always tries to, like, coach me down into, like, different ways or different things I'm doing. And she said, when you get attracted to carrying a gun and having sex and doing cocaine, it's a lot harder to get used to just, like, having a nice evening on the couch or, like, having a nice walk in the woods. Because it's a totally different feel. It's a totally different level of, like, serotonin and dopamine. And adjusting to that is one of the most important things we can do.
Well, I'm in complete agreement with both of you on that. And that's why, even in here, I like getting up in the morning around 5, give or take, so I can pray. I'm not always perfectly alert or aware, and they're not always the greatest prayers sometimes, especially, if I don't get a good night's sleep or whatever.
You have 1 minute remaining.
But I'm trying to find those little moments of quiet and solitude and get used to it in here because as you're aware, there's nothing but noise in prison. Even a female CO makes rounds at 3 a.m., and the Department of Corrections says she has to come in and yell out, "Female on the floor," in the middle of the damn night while guys are trying to sleep. So there's always constant noise and just stupid things going on. So finding that moment of solitude is, it's very important. Look, bro, I appreciate you reaching out to us, man, and calling us and everything after we reached out to you and taking this time to talk to me and whatnot, man. I do appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Keep your head up. I'm glad you're a Buckingham rather than the Onion.
Yeah, you and me both, man. Keep doing what you're doing out there, man, because people like you give us hope in here.
Thank you for using GTL.
All right, that's all the time we have for now. I appreciate you listening to me more than you'll probably ever know. I just want to let you know, don't forget to check out my website, RedOnionRandy.com. And for those of you who want to hear more, or you want to listen to the episodes commercial-free, or hear me and my editor discuss a little bit further into the episodes, please go to Patreon, join me, support me. It's only $5 a month. And just a reminder, I have a cookbook out. You're going to eat that. You can find it on our website or Amazon Kindle or Amazon Print.
Thank you for using GTL.